This is the story of Audrey in Bendy and the Dark Revival. It was a dark and stormy night. How many horror stories have you heard in your life that happen to begin with that line? Would it make it worse if you were also stuck at work? Those are the exact circumstances that Audrey found herself in during the beginning of Bendy and the Dark Revival. Though, I suppose it makes a difference if you enjoy the work you do. Audrey, a driven animator employed by Archgate Pictures, was even given an Employee of the Month award for her outstanding efforts. Still, work ethic or not, it probably stops being enjoyable once the power goes out, and you're left with no one but a creepy old man to keep you company. Let's take a look at the lore surrounding Audrey and the mystery behind her character. Audrey, as previously mentioned, is an animator, and upon introduction, we find her to be dutifully working on animation frames for a new series of Bendy cartoons. Things get dark, literally and figuratively, once the storm outside claims the building's power, and sets Audrey's fate in motion at the hands of Wilson. Things only get worse as we see the all-too-familiar ink machine. Through Wilson's trickery, Audrey accidentally powers up the machine and is slowly drawn into the inky depths. When she eventually awakens, she finds herself in another world entirely. Audrey, to no surprise, panics as her senses return, and she finds herself fundamentally changed by the ink that swallowed her up. Clearly, her plight wasn't random, but planned. Wilson was seemingly someone of authority in this place. The Cycle, as it was called. This new land. However, she of course had far more questions than answers at this point. Audrey narrowly avoids death by an attack from a creature of the ink, a Piper, thanks to the help of Allison. Audrey's journey truly begins at this point, as she sets course to find a way out of this inky world. She finds no simplicity going forward, as a life she had no prior memory of is thrust upon her, along with powers she could never imagined. After her first, admittedly sad encounter with Bendy, Audrey finds herself on the run from the ink demon itself, something that she was warned of upon arrival, despite the rampant propaganda from Wilson present everywhere stating that it was supposed to be dead. You're a real champ, Wilson. A real champ. Anyway, Audrey, in her attempts to follow Allison's advice to flee to the elevator and make it to the surface, eventually encounters Joey Drew himself, or at least an inky memory of him. Joey begins painting a picture for Audrey with regard to the nature of the cycle itself and the fact that it's currently changing, bending to some outside force, and that he believes Audrey is present now for a good reason. Things become complicated further upon their second meeting within Downside Motel. Joey blows the door open on her past and reveals that she's in fact a creation of the ink machine herself, the final masterpiece of Joey Drew, who simply hoped to make himself a family. There were others before her, but only she called him Dad. Audrey, overwhelmed by the sudden revelations, believes Joey to be outright lying. She tells him as much before leaving in a fit to head towards the Gent facility to continue her search for Wilson, still holding hope that he indeed has answers for her. However, it isn't long after that she has to start considering Joey's information seriously. As she enters the facility, she's greeted by not only the ink demon, but constructs of Wilson's design. Towers, crackling with energy, that seemingly have the ability to strip both the ink demon and herself of their powers. For a moment, she wrestles with the fact that the horrifying ink demon and the tiny, shy Bendy are one and the same, and that she is somehow related to them. Joey may have been telling the truth, but her time to dwell on it was short. She had to find Wilson. Through her journey within the Gent facility, Audrey encounters more creations from Wilson, both machine, such as the towers she had previously discovered, and entities known as the Keepers, who were essentially Wilson's guards. It is here in the facility where she finds more information about the cycle at large from a fateful meeting with Henry Stein, Bendy's creator, the protagonist of the first game, and friend of Joey Drew. His past with Joey was complicated at best, but at the moment that didn't matter. Henry was a cycle breaker, as he attempted to break the cycle of the repeating timeline of the first game, Bendy and the Ink Machine. The cycle, as a world, was one that was linked to the ink demon and could be reset if a certain condition was met. That specific condition was luring the ink demon into watching a real film simply titled The End. Wilson, apparently, was trying to prevent this result from occurring, and wished to do so by destroying the ink demon completely. This, of course, was something Audrey would come to find out from Wilson himself. When she attempts to press further into the facility, she is attacked by one of the Keepers, and when she awakens, finds herself on a train with the old janitor himself. Wilson, still promising to return Audrey home safely, doubles down on his desire to obliterate the ink demon. The whole idea is, so he says, an effort to save his father. Whispers on the wind from the ink demon insist that Wilson is lying. But at this point, who is Audrey really to believe? Well, as it turns out, the ink demon was telling the truth. After a puzzling encounter with Alice Angel and a reunion with Allison, Wilson's game is revealed: to best his father and take control of the cycle through defeating the ink demon with a colorful creation of his own, one that required a very specific kind of soul as to be controllable. Audrey had been the one that Wilson had tapped for this very honor, due to her unique background. To date, she was the most successful creation from the ink machine. Audrey, understandably, wanted no part in this. Perhaps it was because she didn't agree with Wilson, or maybe it was because she didn't want to be ground to paste by the positively medieval contraption he was wanting her to step into. Push came to shove, literally, as Audrey fought off the twisted fake janitor and threw him into his own machine. Despite being slap-chopped, Audrey knew this wasn't quite the end of Wilson. His soul was now being integrated with the cartoon character he created, Ship Ahoy Dudley. Audrey's fate was before her now as she faced down with the fusion of Wilson and his creation, now Ship Ahoy Wilson. Though she was successful in her efforts to defeat the monster, Audrey was mortally wounded during the fight. The ink demon appeared in the end to drag the horrifying creature into the inky abyss after Audrey had banished Wilson's soul from his body. The demon, satisfied with the result, rose from the ink to taunt Audrey as she sat in obvious pain. According to him, she was now pointless, since her purpose within the cycle had been completed. Pointless, that is, as in existing as anything other than part of him. The ink demon possesses Audrey, who was indeed too injured to resist. In fact, if it weren't for an intervention from Joey Drew, this may have very well been her end. Her consciousness and soul simply fading away within the ego of the ink demon. However, Joey's efforts were thankfully not in vain. Jolted from her fading consciousness, Audrey managed to wrestle control of the ink demon's body away from him and take the reel of the end from Joey's unfortunately motionless body. Following a heart-pounding rampage through the facility, Audrey forces the ink demon to gaze upon the end and restart the cycle anew. In the end, Audrey accepts the truths that Joey Drew imparted upon her. She accepts her existence as a being of both ink and flesh and makes a solemn promise to make things better for her friends who are still within the cycle, as she herself is now free and back in the outside world. The future of the cycle, it would seem, is in Audrey's hands. Fitting that a world of ink should be watched over by the hand of an artist instead of that of a fake janitor. But with the post-credits sequence, it truly makes you wonder if this will be the case. But what did you think of Audrey's journey, and where do you think the Bendy universe is headed next? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, cheers!